go. All right, we're live. Here we go. All right, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo, also known as TWiP. Today, I'm joined by my two friends, Mr. Lee Herbert and Miss Nicole S. Young, also known as Nicole Z. Hey, guys, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. All right, we got a lot of stuff to go over. Before we dive in, I want to just get a quick touch base on what's going on with you guys. Nicole, what's going on in your world before we dive into the show?
Let's see. I've been doing a lot of stuff with my store, making products, ebooks, presets,
My favorite
my
store.
work stuff. And I've been getting scuba certified lately because I want to get into underwater photography. So
You are just James Bond. You're always doing something crazy.
I know I gotta get like the what is it, like the thigh mounted knife. So I can,
Oh
like,
yeah, for the sharks. Yeah, your
Yeah.
shark knife.
No,
Yeah.
it's actually to cut yourself out of getting entangled if you get like entangled in like a, I don't know, seaweed, or I know down in California they have the really, really tall don't even know the kelp fields. The kelp fields. I haven't
Those
actually done
things.
any scuba diving yet. I'm just still in the training process, but
Next year this time you'll say kelp like it was nothing.
I
I'm telling
know.
you. But sharks, yeah. Speaking of things that might kill you, Lee is Lee Herbert down under in Australia, where I watched a documentary that said there were no less than 82 species of creature down there that really want to kill you, right?
Yeah, and I'm married to only 3 of them. So.
Wow.
Oh, am I going to be in trouble?
Wow, that's awesome. All right,
Hey,
while Lee is still married during this podcast.
She married me for my sense of humor. It's all good.
All right, so what's going on with you other than signing the divorce papers?
What's going on with me? Well, I just finished up this last weekend a documentary that I filmed last year in Israel about a little restaurant there that's sort of promoting some interaction between the peoples, which is nice. So that doco was just in the Cine Aid Film Festival in Texas last weekend, which was pretty cool. So that's
Cool.
what's been happening lately.
And,
Other than
and
that-
raising that little baby, right?
Yes. That's there's a little 3-month-old, which he's so adorable. I can't wait till he can hold my sound equipment and I can take him out on shoots.
There you go. Free labor. I love it. You need to make
not
some
child
more.
labor. Yeah, it's not child labor if they're yours, right? That's
Exactly. It's just abuse at that point. Yeah. All right, guys, let's dive into the show. Story number 1 is about DJI. So DJI, you may know them from the Phantom fame. They kind of led the charge for the whole drone movement. In fact, their quadcopters, the Phantom, that the shape of it has kind of been iconic for drones. Well, it's been kind of a Clash of the Titans, Godzilla versus Rodan kind of thing going on between DJI and GoPro. So GoPro announced that they were working on a drone, and GoPro is known for their action cameras. So they're like, you know what? We like that market DJI is playing in. We think we can make some money in there. So they decided that they're going to move into the drone market. Now DJI said, you know what? You're gonna do that? We're moving into the photography, the camera market. So DJI announced that they have 2 new mirrorless Micro Four Thirds cameras for aerial photography. And this story comes to us from Engadget, our friends over at Engadget. So before we talk about it, I'm going to give you some specs of this thing. So these are going to have Micro Four Thirds sensors, which means they're going to capture 16 megapixel stills and 4K video up to 30 frames a second. And the model number is the X5R. They say it's capable of capturing images and video, including 4K and Cinema DNG, which I'm sure Lee knows all about. It's got an onboard micro SD card or a 512 SSD. And this is the thing one of the things I want to talk about regarding this thing. So it's 3/4 of a pound, the body is, and it accommodates 4 interchangeable lenses. So when you see the headline that says Micro Four Thirds on DJI, you immediately, or at least I immediately, think all of my Micro Four Thirds lenses up there, I can now put on a quadcopter. No, not the case. So they're using a Micro Four Thirds sensor, and they're releasing 4 interchangeable lenses that fit this camera, ranging from 12 millimeters to 17 millimeters. And while in flight, the pilot can adjust the aperture, the focus, all that stuff. So, Lee, when you saw this, I mean, you're the filmmaker in the TWiP family, right? So, when you saw this, were you salivating, or did you think, you know what, I'd rather just have the Inspire with its built-in camera? What were your thoughts?
Well, initially I was very excited because they were actually showing off this product at IBC, which is a big film event over in Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago, and from the specs and stuff, it looks like it's going to be a really, really cool product. A
Yeah.
couple of little caveats that are on there. So on the positive side, it's amazing because you're going to be able to get really beautiful cinematic footage and things like that. But like, so for example, one of the things they talk about is, you're going to be able to play with your focus and your depth of field. But if you think about it, when you're shooting drone footage, you're not going to be shooting at f2.8 because things moving around so much. You want to shoot sort of at least around maybe f8. So at least most of things are in focus. So it's one of the things where you're like, oh my God, we've got all these amazing opportunities. But then when you actually stop and sort of think about it, well, hang on, where am I actually going to use that? Having said that, more options are always good. So
Yeah.
there is that. The other thing to keep in mind is this also means that potentially, like when I hire drone guys to come out on a professional shoot with me, there's always at least two of them because there's one to control the UAV and there's one to control the gimbal that the camera's on the UAV.
Mm-hmm.
So this does add some complexity where if you want to go out and film stuff by yourself, you're going to have to be like an octopus because you've got to control the UAV and at the same time you're going to be having to look at what the camera's doing and controlling the camera. It's not impossible, but it takes a lot of practice.
It's almost like these days with this drone photography in itself is becoming just a whole career field. And it seems like there's drone pilots and aerial photographers that do the cinematography or the camera work while someone standing next to them with the controller and the iPad and all that are doing the flying. Nicole, when you saw this thing, were you excited? Are you a drone head yet?
No, I don't see myself ever getting interested or into the aerial photography. You see a lot of the controversy around it. People using it in places they're not supposed to. The places you want to use it, like national parks, they usually don't allow it. So there's no point of doing it there. I'm more of a landscape photographer in that regard. I think this kind of thing is probably going to appeal more to the commercial side of photography. It's a $7,000 camera, and it's like you said, you can't use your own lenses, so you have to buy the whole kit. I don't know if it includes all those lenses with the base product, but
I would imagine not. If I were them, because it says it accommodates 4 lenses. If I were them, I'd include a kit lens, and hey, buy these other 3 lenses if you want, for your special.
But it obviously is going. The quality of the image is going to be better. And obviously, at 16 megapixels is going to, be more than enough for like 1080p video or even 4K. I'm not sure what that should be enough, right?
4K is 8 megapixels, so it's double 4K.
Definitely. So that's what I see this type. It's definitely something that there's a market for it. But for hobbyists and people who just do it now and then, most of the time, like Brian, my husband, has a DJI, and as far as I know, that thing collects dust a lot of the time because there's not a ton of opportunity to use it.
See, that's why I haven't gotten one, because I don't have a ton of opportunity to use it, and I'm afraid if I spend that money, it's going to be sitting there taunting me.
And then especially if the cameras are integrated,
like
if the camera's integrated, then if you want a new one, you have to upgrade the whole kit instead of just getting a new camera to go on your existing helicopter or whatever they call them. So.
But Nicole, is it the idea of aerials that don't really appeal to you for the type of photography that you're doing? In other words, if DJI came up with a UUV, an unmanned underwater vehicle,
that'd be cool.
Would you, like, you could stand on the shoreline and go do shots, a mile out? Would you use that?
I think that would be cool. But it's more. I think a lot of it is just the extra gear. So it's funny because I've been moving away. I still have all my Canon gear, but I also am building a Fuji kit. So I have a couple of XT1s, and I'm slowly building my lenses on there, but trying to keep it light. Like a nice little travel kit, something that doesn't weigh more than like 6 or 7 pounds. But now I'm getting into scuba. So there's all the scuba gear, and then there's all the underwater photography gear that I haven't even dealt with yet. But the having one of these, the DJIs is just one more thing. And it's kind of the same. It's obviously very different, but it's kind of the same as the way that I think about time-lapse photography. I don't really need a lot of extra equipment just to do a basic time-lapse, but I only go to shoot time-lapse. I can't go, for me, I can't go and do landscapes plus a time lapse that's going to last an hour. I kind of have to focus on just one thing. And so I don't know if I would want to do a trade-off of, aerial photography versus whatever, unless I had some video purpose. But then I would probably just hire somebody or borrow someone's, to do that. But
totally, yeah, or rent, right?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
I don't know if you can rent. I don't know if that's actually a tenable proposition to be renting drones.
Imagine the insurance deposit.
Oh yeah, yeah. But Lee, when you look at this stuff, I often wonder, like, where is this stuff going? This is awesome coming from DJI, even though it's $7,000 right now. I'm sure the prices will come down eventually.
It's actually $8,000. Just
$8,000, yeah.
Yeah,
which
7,999.
That's crazy. But okay, it's crazy. We say it's crazy, but if you're a filmmaker, that's a drop in the bucket, in the overall budget for the film. If you need to get that shot, because you could spend that much money renting a helicopter and hiring a pilot for a day, right, rather than doing all this stuff. But if you think about it, I think about it from the standpoint of like the TWiP audience, and most of us in the TWiP audience we're advanced amateurs, professional photographers. So, and the thing that I've been struggling with over 2015, because I've been lusting after like the Inspire and now the Phantom 3 and DJ, or what is it, 3D Robotics has these cool drones out there. So I'm thinking, do I need to add a drone to my toolkit as just a photographer, just to be able to get those aerial shots? Or is it a genre of photography that you push off to the side, like Nicole said, and let someone else that's more qualified do it? Should I be learning that skill set in order to remain viable?
No, well, there's a couple of things, and I mean, looking at the broader, so I mean, for the audio people listening, while Nicole was talking, I did hold up my think tank bag that's got this little drone in there, and this is a little cheap knockoff that I got from China for like $600, and that was just to play around. Something to keep in mind before we even get, and I've got plenty of opinions about the whole drone thing,
Sure.
But even before we get started, I think the most important thing to talk about is the legalities of it and how the laws are starting to shape around it. So, for example, in Australia, the laws are phenomenally strict here. So if you are an amateur and you are not making money or you're not benefiting from the footage that you are gaining from using your UAV, then you can use it as you please, as long as it is not within range of an airport, it doesn't fly within 30 meters of people, and that you're responsible about it. If you want to use it professionally, you have to. So we've got a government body called CASA, which is like the FAA in the US, and you have to be CASA certified to fly a UAV professionally. And you, even once you are a certified pilot, you then have to lodge a flight plan when you use it. So when I need drone footage for a professional corporate gig that I'm doing, I'll just hire a drone guy, because I don't have the time to become a certified drone pilot and then lodge a flight plan and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to add your little price onto the price for the client, and we're just going to get you to do it.
And I think that's actually good, because on the one hand, I mean, it sucks for amateurs. They're like, you know what, I just want to fly, and every now and then I want to make a couple dollars shooting real estate or something like that. It sucks for that. But I think it's good from the standpoint of it opens up a brand new business and a brand new career field, because now the barrier to entry is higher. So the people that want to jump through those hoops, they do that, and now Lee Herbert calls them and say, hey, I got this gig, Mr. Certified Man, come over and do this thing for me. So now it's an actual business that you can operate legally under the law. I think the FAA is probably going in the same direction. I've seen some hints of what they're planning on doing, and it looks like it may be similar, maybe not as stringent, but similar. But Nicole, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think it should be, like, speaking legally? Lee, we'll get back to the rest of that stuff. But speaking legally, do you think the FAA or CASA, whoever, should be stricter on who can fly these drones? Is that restrictive to the creativity that could happen, or does it spark kind of a new business?
I think that it's smart to make it. It's not restrictive just for the sake of making it restrictive, but keeping the wrong people from getting these things in their hands. You know, when you're trying to do two things, when you're trying to fly it and take pictures at the same time,
Yeah.
you have a lot going on. It's great to restrict it in terms of things like wildlife. You know, so you don't. Unless you're actually doing research and you need, you know, and you have a permit to do it that way. If you're just taking pictures, you know, that you don't want to get in the way of natural things happening and scare animals in their natural habitat. Obviously you don't want them to crash into planes. And you've heard all those stories about potentially having that. And it's just idiots getting these things and not using them properly. And unfortunately,
that's the thing about idiots. If they want to get the stuff, they'll get them.
Yeah, it's one thing to be an idiot and have it endanger your own life. It's another thing entirely to endanger other lives, even if they're just animals. Which I, think that it's not just an animal. I think it's great to keep those things in check. But yeah, I think that it's good that the FAA is looking into it. Of course, a lot of people are going to be upset about it. I'm sure that it's not something DJI wants to happen because it restricts the barrier to entry for photographers to get involved with it. And it's always possible that they would go too far, requiring like a all-out pilot's license. I don't know how difficult it is to achieve a pilot's license, but I know anyone can go and do it. It's just it's a lot of work to do it.
But with something like with a pilot's license, of course, you got to have a plane to fly, and you got to go to the airport. You got to buy the fuel and file the flight plan. It's not easy to illegally fly a plane, right?
Yeah.
But it's really easy to illegally fly a drone. And how enforceable is that? If they were to lock it down, it's going to be like the war on drugs, right?
Yeah.
So if they lock it down, now everybody's going to want to do it, and they'll just do it. It'll be unenforceable. Right?
I think one of the things that is unfortunate to the whole quadcopter issue is that they started calling them drones, and so everybody who hears drone, average Joe who is slightly naive. Drone! Oh my gosh, there's a drone! Someone's taking pictures of me while I'm in my bedroom. It's like
that's a Sidewinder missile on it.
Yes,
right?
It's like that's the kind of stuff that just kind of is ridiculous. But unfortunately, you kind of have to cater to the lowest denominator and keep things more safe. But it'll be interesting to see how everything kind of works out. I think commercially, I think it makes sense if people want to use it. Like in the link that you shared it shows a quadcopter over like a big production for a car commercial. It looks like, obviously they can afford to jump through all those hoops and get really great quality video or photos from it. But the average person who just wants a few pictures here and there, like you said, I do feel badly for like the real estate industry, because that's, it's they just want to up and down one picture of the house, and that's all they want.
Just give me a 360 and boom, that's it.
So it would be nice if they could make exceptions to things like that, and people could get maybe like licenses to do basic things like just a real estate. All you can do is real estate, up and down, and that's it. So
yeah, I don't know, Lee, I want you to continue your thought from before.
Well, the other thing that I was going to say, also creatively, in terms of whether we should be using UAVs all the time and doing all the shots. Do you remember when HDR first came out and suddenly everyone was doing all HDR all the time?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like that now with UAV footage. It's like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So even just from a creative point of view, I'm seeing a lot of UAV footage where it's like, is that shot really necessary? I mean, it's pretty and all, but
I know. Do I really need to see the flyby of the bride and groom and then the cliffs where they got married?
I was shooting a wedding last year, and we get to the church, and you know how they pack the weddings in. The wedding before us was just finishing, and the video guys at that wedding had a drone over. Technically, if CASA ever found out, they should be in trouble because they shouldn't have been flying over people. Yeah. But they had this UAV flying over all the, and I was like, that's really loud.
Yeah.
Like, that's making a lot of noise. Like we shot a wedding out in the out in like a flower farm, beautiful setting, whatever. And we got, because it's like this beautiful setting, we got the drone guys in, and we actually had people worried that there were bees in the trees by the ceremony because they were hearing the drone.
That's funny.
Is there bees all over the place?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just common sense at that point.
Having said that, if you do have the money to get one and you just want to get one for fun, they are a lot of fun.
I know, and that's why I'm holding off, because every time I get close to like having enough money to get one, something happens. Like they come out with something new or something, Or here's something like the complete antithesis. I saw this article the other day that this ammo manufacturer had come out with
Yeah.
shotgun shells. Maybe it was you, Lee, that sent it to me, but I don't know. It was shotgun shells or shells specifically for your gun that were designed to take out UAVs.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
It even had a picture, a little silhouette of a UAV. You know, you could just. I mean, for the people that decide they want to protect their land from UAVs, I can understand it. You know, it's kind of like skeet shooting, but it's just funny. It's just funny where this stuff is going. I don't know. I mean, I feel for both sides. Like on the one hand, I want to get one, I want to play with it, I want to go shoot stuff, and occasionally I want to be able to make a couple bucks from it, right? Whether it's the flyby of the bride and groom and then showing the awesome clips where they got married, or I just want to do some experimental stuff or landscapes from weird angles, and then maybe sell a print from that. That's commercial, but maybe now is the time. And Lee, you tell me what you think. Is now the time, because the law is so muddy, especially here in the United States, it's so muddy, is it time to just like get out there and stake your claim before the government gets in there and regulates?
Absolutely. Before you end up like us, and while you can sort of, while you can act stupid and go, oh, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do that. Now would be the time. So, like in Australia, if you get caught using it professionally when you're not CASA certified, it's up to $8,500 fine, and if someone gets hurt, it's jail time.
Oh, geez.
So
Well, how do you, I mean,
they're not messing around.
granted, if someone gets hurt, yeah, all bets are off. You should, and you were doing something stupid that you shouldn't have been doing, then there should be punitive damages, and
The thing is, you don't even have to be all that stupid. Like let's say for example, I'm out in a park and I'm flying my drone just for a bit of fun, and it loses radio signal, so it just loses. I lose control of it.
Right.
Now, technically, how these things are designed to work is that as soon as it loses the signal from the remote control, it flies up to 30 feet, which is like a safe distance, and then it lands slowly. But let's say it thinks it's still getting a signal, and I forget that right is left and left is right. I fly it into some kid's head, and it cuts them in the forehead or something.
Mhm.
You do have to kind of, you know what? It's like anything. You need to be responsible with these things.
But at that point, you would think. I mean, I know as the words come out of my mouth, I realize how ludicrous they are. But you would think that the judicial system would safeguard against things like that and not erroneously put people in jail for accidents. But we know there are many people in jail for
and life is totally fair.
Yeah, life is totally fair. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's really tough. I wanna become, quote, a drone pilot, but I don't have time. I feel like the minute, Nicole, I feel like as soon as I get off my ass and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a drone pilot. I'm gonna get it. That next week, the regulations will hit. You cannot fly. That's the way it happens. Anything I buy, normally something happens right after that. I don't know. It's crazy. So, Lee, you bought one. You bought the cheap Chinese knockoff, as you said. Are you any plans to get anything more expensive, or are you happy with that one?
Well, I'm not planning on becoming. I'm not planning on being a professional UAV pilot. So for me, I'm just perfectly happy to just have a bit of fun with it, and just use it as a really cool toy.
Yeah.
Again, if the laws were different in Australia, I would probably have a different answer. Like if I was able to use it commercially by going out and doing a one-day course, cool. But the thing is, to become CASA certified, it's not a one-day course. It's a bit more involved than that. So if it was cheaper and easier to become certified, I would. And then I'd do it.
Wouldn't that be cool though? If the government here in the United States came out with and said, you know what, we don't want to overly regulate this industry. We recognize it's a growth space, and we don't want to stifle Americans. Blah 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 blah. So
freedom.
But we still want to protect the innocent. So what we're going to do is put this thing in place where you have to take this particular kind of training. It's a week long or 3 days long of training, and then you can become drone certified and fly your drone. And you have to pay, and you have to register your drone so it has a number and a transponder. Like a car, yeah. Just like
that is what we've got here. Like you could do an intense 5-day workshop and
Yeah.
then do the exams and stuff. And there is actually a hands-on thing where an instructor comes and gets you to fly between cones and stuff, and
Oh,
make sure you
nice.
know how to control it. It's kind of cool.
It's like a
Um,
motorcycle, getting like your
yeah,
motorcycle license in the
yeah,
U.S.
Yeah.
There's a lot more
Yeah.
involved.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think that could be an ideal lynda.com or Creative Live course. That'd be really, really cool. Nicole, I think you should teach that right after the scuba diving,
Yeah, right.
the underwater photography course that you're
You're put-
preparing for.
Wouldn't that be something? Is there such a thing? Because I want to watch it if there is.
I don't know. That would be awesome.
That'd be a lot of production work.
It would, but it'd be worth it. It would be
Sure.
worth it.
Sure.
All right, guys, before we continue, actually, let's jump right into story number 2, and this is about Canon. Nicole, I know you are a Canon shooter.
Mhm.
You have one laying around there somewhere.
Yeah.
And this comes to us from our friends over at Petapixel, and they question, is Canon pushing things too far with their 120 megapixel SLR? 120. You thought 50 megapixels was a lot. They're talking about 120 megapixel SLR. So right now, the 5DS and the 5DSR and an A7R2, those cameras are around the 50 megapixel range, and they've already proved that people like them because those cameras are selling. And you know, the naysayers that say 50 megapixels is way too much are kind of eating their words because those cameras are actually selling, and they found a market. So the question is, 120 megapixels. Do we need it? Nicole, you're the closest thing on the show right now to a strict landscape shooter because you do that a lot. Do you need 120 megapixels? I mean, do you need 50 megapixels?
I don't personally. I mean, just to clarify, this camera is still a prototype. They don't even really have a real name for it. It's like YX. Where's that? I had it in front of me and I lost it. It was like some, just like 4-letter string of things. But yeah, it's. I'm sure it has. I think for this, they're just showing the potential. Maybe they're gonna come out with some new stuff. They have the 50 megapixel, so I don't know. They probably have it. They're really shooting with it, but it's not actually for sale.
Right. Yeah.
It may never be for
concept.
sale.
It's a proof
Yes.
of concept.
Yes.
Yeah. But they could make it for sale, right? Like in the
Oh,
notes,
possibly,
like what they
yeah.
said at Petapixel, this is the nuclear option. Right? So when they're like, okay, we need to do something and shake this market up, they could drop this Manhattan Project and see what happens. Lee, do you need this? Do you need 120 megapixels in your world?
Hell no.
I mean, I'm not hating against Canon. 120 megapixels. I really, really want to see a shot, a straight out of camera raw file that's 120 megapixels.
You gotta find a
I wanna
website
see
that can
the
actually
size.
host it.
I want to see the size of the lenses that you're gonna need
Yeah.
Yeah.
to resolve that kind of resolution.
That's true. That's
Do
the
they
other
say-
thing, right?
Do they
Yeah.
say what size the sensor actually is?
No, I didn't read into that. No.
Or is it
And
like
there wasn't anything like the size of pickup truck you would need to carry the lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd be like, let me just attach this to the Hubble telescope.
There you go. There you go. Maybe that's who they're developing it for, NASA. We need better shots of Pluto. So, that's crazy. I mean, on the one hand, I'm the Micro Four Thirds shooter in me is like 120 megapixels. Really, 16 megapixels is a lot. 120 megapixels. I don't know what I would be basking in all those pixels doing with my life. It seems decadent. But on the other hand, the photographer and the nerd in me is like, 120 megapixels.
More numbers.
More higher numbers must have higher megapixel. Need it, But I mean, the problems that obviously causes, like Lee, you noted, like what's the sensor size and what does that do to the optics and just the overall ergonomics of a device like that, and then also what would the file sizes be, and what does that mean for the storage kind of methodology that you've worked out? Does all that need to change? Not to mention performance of Photoshop and Lightroom crunching on 120 megapixels. Is it a click, go get a cup of coffee, come back and see your change? Like we used to have like 4 years ago?
On the bright side, could you take a photo of a sports stadium and then create portraits of each person in that photo?
Exactly. Yeah.
Pretty close.
A group shot. You can do a group shot and then just create portraits from each. See, it's just crazy where this stuff is going. It's exciting, and I applaud. Hats off to Canon for continuing to do stuff. And I'm glad the industry is still alive and that Canon's still doing stuff. But I still, the jury's still out, at least in my head, on 120 megapixels. It may just be niche. It may just be for select markets like investigative and medical and stuff like that, and they don't really care about the landscape and portrait shooters. Or like Nicole said, it may just be a proof of concept that'll never see the light of day.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna look at travel companies that are looking to capitalize on the Instagram generation by including pro photographers as part of their travel package. All right, guys, we're back. Story number 3 is titled "Forget Selfies." This comes to us from The Guardian. It's titled "Forget Selfies. The latest holiday accessory is a pro photographer." So, people may wake up and have a Lee Herbert in their stocking next year.
Very small stocking.
Little feet sticking out, So,
Hello.
So basically, the gist is some of these companies. So let me read this to you. So the trend for uploading holiday photos on social media has led one travel company to include a personal photographer to document your trip and deliver a daily supply of Instagram-friendly images for you to share online. El Camino includes a professional snapper as part of the package on its small group tours in Colombia and Nicaragua. The photographer will deliver dozens of images to you each morning that you can, quote, immediately share on social media. They launched it last year with tours and already sold out for 2015, and they're one of a growing number of travel companies that are capitalizing on the social media thing. So for this panel, so this is kind of awesome when I thought about it. When I first read the headline, I'm like, really? I mean, it kind of reminded me of, like, it was a trend a couple years ago of wealthy people hiring photographers to just follow them around on vacation. It's because they didn't want to take photos of themselves. So why not spend the money, have a pro photographer come with you and document it for you, and you can enjoy the vacation, which makes a lot of sense if you got the coin to do that. These guys are doing this for the travel thing, but with an Instagram spin on it. Nicole, when you see something like this, say you and Brian are like, we're photographers all of our lives. We're going to, Colombia just to enjoy ourselves. We're going to leave the cameras at home, but we still feel like our fans need to know what's going on. Would you opt for this option and have a pro photographer follow you around?
I don't think this is for photographers. I mean, I'd have to pretend that I'm not a photographer to answer that question, because there's no way you would get me to leave my house without some type of camera. When I visit my family, I still bring my camera gear. It's a smaller version of it, but I think I think this is really clever. It's definitely a commodity, but trips and vacations are in general kind of a commodity to begin with. It's not a requirement to live, but it's something we do because we want to see new places and we want to enjoy them. And people who can afford it, I think it's kind of genius in a way. It gives the photographer, unless they live there to begin with, which is probably the case. But let's say somebody approached you and were like, "Hey, I know you're a really great photographer. I'll give you an all-expense paid trip to go with us to Tahiti, and I'll also pay you to take pictures of us while we're there." And who can say no to that? Seriously.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. I would do it if somebody asked me.
That's kind of a dream. I mean, when you think of it from a business standpoint, I could build a business out of that.
You should do it.
This week I'm going to Tahiti. Next week it's Maui. Why not? I would love that. I don't know. It's really interesting. And Lee, I want to have you chime in on this, because I know you've shot your share of weddings and that sort of thing. But when you look at this, when I saw this, I'm like, okay, as me vacationing, I probably, like Nicole, probably would not hire somebody to follow me around. But when you put your business hat on, it seems like an awesome line item to add to your offering to someone. You get the album, you get the parent albums, you get these many prints, you get a 16x20 framed, and you get 50 Instagram shots that are square, or I guess they don't have to be square anymore, but they're 50 Instagram shots to share on social media, etc. What do you think?
I think these people also need to get a movie trailer made of their vacation, and they should take me as well.
There you go.
They have all editing, following them everywhere they go.
Yeah. Coming this summer, your vacation.
15-second clips from Lee Herbert. That's all you need.
I think this is on the one hand, it's marketing genius, but on the other hand, it is well, no, it is just marketing genius because people love sharing photos and images from their holidays, but then they see other people's photos and images, and they're like, why are their photos better than ours? And I mean, I think there's definitely a market for it. My one curmudgeon comment about this was it depends on how good the photos need to be from the customer's perspective, but also the photographer's perspective, because are they going to want me to set up 4 or 5 strobes and get them to stand there for about an hour so we can get
ruining the vacation.
10 or 20 different exposures. The kids want to go to the pool, not until we get the shot.
Yeah. Well, my curmudgeonly comment about it is that the most popular camera on Flickr and other services is the iPhone. And most people either have an iPhone or a very capable Android device that can do these awesome photos. Like, I would kind of want to do my own.
I have a counter comment to that. It's not the camera, it's the creativity behind it.
That's true. And if you want to be in the shots, you can't be holding the camera, right?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
But I mean,
go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, but if I mean, even I remember Scott Bourne saying a couple of times, possibly on this show, that when he was shooting weddings, he could say, right, Uncle Bob, you take my professional fancy DSLR, I'll take your iPhone, and I guarantee you I'll take better photos than you.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why the reason why people are going to bring a photographer as opposed to just taking stuff with their iPhone is because the photographer's got the eye, and the photographer's going to know how to compose the shot and expose it, and hire a professional, you're going to get better stuff.
Right. And of course, like I said, if you want to be in the shots, you can't be the one holding the camera, And like if you looked at my library of shots that of family and friends and everything, you would think I don't exist because it's shots of everybody else and I'm nowhere to be found, right?
No, that's the same with me and my family and even with me and Brian, because we're both taking pictures of other things, and sometimes we get pictures of each other. But we recently we recently went to Iceland and Norway, and I think one of the things some of the photos I actually like the best are the photos that I took of both of us. I would just set up I'd be like, all right, we're at this waterfall. I'm going to set up my tripod. I'm going to set up my camera, which is already set up because I've been taking pictures. And I just do a quick kind of, I guess, selfie. I just do a portrait, an environmental portrait of us next to some really awesome waterfall. And I am so glad that I did that because now I have like memories of us in this place instead of what it usually is just photos that I took, and there's no pictures of me.
Of the place. Yeah. So, it's weird how we think like that, because as a photographer, you go to an interesting place, like me. I went to Kauai, what was it, a couple months ago, and we were there, we're ziplining and doing all this cool stuff and having a good time. Then you come back and you look at the shots in the video, and you're like, where am I?
Yeah.
There's there's my foot. There's here's my hand in the shot. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to do it. I don't know, depending on the add-on price, if it made sense to add it to the overall package, why not? Why not?
If I had the money, I would hire a photographer to come with me on vacation, and then they can get lots of photos of me with a camera taking photos of video.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
You should hire the photographer / nanny to come in and get shots of your kid growing up, and you don't have to worry about missing anything. Just wouldn't that be awesome? Perfect.
Oh, just you had me at nanny.
Yeah, you had me at nanny. All right, guys, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to be answering one of the or a question from one of our listeners. All right, guys, it's time for some listener Q&A. This week's question is from Bill Murphy. Bill says, I've been in the high desert shooting wide 28mm with a circular polarizer filter. Unfortunately, the pictures will come out with a dark blue to light blue sky graduated across the picture. A, how can you shoot wide with a circular polarizer in the situation without this happening? And B, is there any way to fix it in Lightroom, Photoshop, or on one? Nicole S. Young, what do you think?
Well, I tend to only use circular polarizers with when I'm trying to cut reflection out. Let's say I'm photographing a waterfall. You can get, the rocks get really shiny if they're wet, so you turn that circular polarizer, you can bring out the actual color of the rock, etc. Or cutting through reflection on a surface of a water or a window glass. It gets really tough when you start adding a whole lot of blue sky, especially if there's no clouds. And with a wide shot, it's gonna, if you turn it the right way, you're really gonna darken that sky, and you're almost gonna over darken it. And I tend to put the circular polarizer away when I'm
Mhm.
photographing those kinds of scenes. I'm more likely to use a graduated ND for that kind of stuff to darken the sky versus, just darkening it, because you're not gonna. It doesn't completely darken the whole sky, and of course it depends on which way you're facing and the time of day. But oftentimes, like you said, it's graduated, so it's going to be really, really dark blue on the top, and oftentimes on the edges, and kind of a vignette if you're photographing white like he is with 28, and then it's going to fade to like a lighter, and it can make it look really, really fake. I mean, I'm sure, and he asked, so basically what I'm saying is try, either turn it so you don't see the dark blue. Like if you have it on your lens and you don't want to take it off, you can't turn it so it's a circular polarizer. That thing's going to spin. You can turn it so that pretty much goes away, or obviously take it off. And if you want to fix it, if you do have that really dark blue, you could try and add some maybe graduated filters like Lightroom. You can use the graduated filters in there. On One has very similar things that you can do in effects or even in layers. So I mean, there are ways to fix it. It's tough to say without actually seeing the photo, but
Yeah.
I would kind
My,
of just
my
say
question would be why, and this might be heresy. I know some people are going to be rolling their eyes, but why not just do it in post? Why do
add
it
it.
in
Oh,
camera?
well, that just depends on the scene. You
Yeah,
can actually.
you
I
could
would
do
actually
that.
recommend making that unless your photo. Okay, so if you have a landscape, let's say, and you need to use it for that reason, then sure, maybe set up with so many different ways you could do it. You could set it up on a tripod. You could do two different variations of it. You could blend the skies together, or
Mhm.
yeah, you could darken the sky in post, and you totally could do that. That's there. So there, that's my answer.
Yeah, the thing that you couldn't do in post is like remove reflections and that sort of thing.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Lee, you have anything to add to that?
Just a couple. Well, because he says that he's been shooting in the high desert, so I'm guessing that reflection wasn't a
Yeah,
huge issue for him.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
So
that too.
I'm not. So yeah, I'm a bit like I don't know whether he really needs the polarizing filter. He could have just done multiple exposures.
Hmm.
Um, the other option now, I don't know if this would help because I don't use filters that much. I just generally use NDs. But also you can get a matte box and use square filters, and then you'd get a little bit less of the vignetting possibly. But of course the lens is going to cause some vignetting as well.
Yeah,
Hmm.
That's really my only input on that.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as my grandfather would say. All right, and I love cats, by the way, so no hate mail.
Yeah, dinner at the Van Johnsons.
I know, I know, I know. No, it's a Southern saying. My family's from the South. All right, listeners, if you have a question you'd like us to answer in the show, visit thisweekinphoto.com. Click on that submit a question link to send us your question, or you can even leave us a voice message. All right, guys, we're going to jump into the Picks of the Week segment. Remember, you guys can pick anything to recommend to the TWiP audience as long as it is somehow related to photography. Lee, I'm going to let you go first. What is your pick of the week?
Cool. My pick of the week is well, everyone knows how much I love hard drives and storage and backup. So my pick is the Pegasus Promise RAID R2 Plus.
Mm,
Now, what this is, it's a little RAID box. It's got three ports in it, but it's got two drives. So it's got two 3 terabyte drives in it. So you can either do that as 6 terabytes, which is what I've done, which is RAID 0, which is really fast, and it's got Thunderbolt 2, so it's a really fast connection. It also has USB 3 if you're using it with a computer that doesn't have Thunderbolt 2. But the really cool thing about this is that it's got a third, they call it a pod, and what the pod is, it's a little modular connection. So for example, I've got my pod run up with a card reader. So it's basically a USB 3 card reader for CF and SD cards. And this is more of a design flaw of the iMac where you've got to reach around the iMac to plug your SD card in, whereas now I
right.
can just plug it in on my desk. But it also comes with another pod that you can change in, that you can put in SSD hard drives.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
when I've come back from a shoot, in fact, I just use this pod when I'm out on a shoot. So I use the Adamus Shogun and Ninjas and the Adamus drives to capture ProRes on my thing, and they just record onto SSD drives. So I can just take those SSD drives, pop them into this pod, and download them onto my computer really quickly. Um, for photographers, I don't know if they really need the speed of the RAID 0. So I was thinking for photographers, what would be even better is you could have the 2-3 terabyte drives set up to back up each other. Well, not back up, copy, because if it's physically the same thing, it's not a backup, it's just a copy.
Right.
But you could have a live copy of your Lightroom or Photoshop or Aperture or whatever libraries on the 1 3 terabyte and have it going live copying to the other 3 terabyte and then have it backing up somewhere else. But yeah, it's I'm thoroughly impressed. I'm very glad that I got it.
All right, so I'm afraid because I'm looking at the web page here for the Pegasus 2 series, and I'm always afraid when they have a button instead of a price, it says contact sales.
Ah,
No,
I don't
okay,
want to contact anybody before I know the price. I'm just saying.
if you need to ask, you can't afford it.
Yeah. Well, I can't afford it then if it's too much.
Look, it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but relatively speaking, for the speed and reliability that you get, it's
Well, what did you pay for it, man? Come on, spill it.
I think it was about 1,000. It was 900, 1,000,
Alright.
somewhere around there. So
Not
it's
too
not.
bad. I mean, that's in line. Is that with no media in it? That's with no drives?
No, that's with 2-3 terabyte drives in it.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad.
Yes.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, so
I mean,
it comes with
when
media.
you're talking about your data, and I mean, as a person that creates and makes his living from data, that's like being a race car driver and then buying cheap wheels, right? I mean,
Yeah. I've turned up for the Formula One. Here's my Daihatsu Charade.
exactly. I'm a really great driver, trust me. Yeah. Well, cool. That's awesome. All right, thanks for that, Lee. So around $1,000, and if you really want to know how much it costs, call Promise. Right? All right, Nicole.
Well, you can just check Amazon. I think they've got prices on Amazon.
Oh, okay, good. We can check them from Amazon. Okay. I was looking at the link you put in the notes. Nicole, what's your pick of the week?
So my pick of the week is On1 Photo 10, which is, they used to be called On1 Software. They've kind of condensed their brand to On1, just ON1. I've been using On1 Soft. It's hard not to say it. I've been using On1 for several years. I have a good relationship with them. I'm not sponsored by them, so they don't pay me to say anything nice about them. But I create a lot of products like tutorials and ebooks and things to help teach people how to use it because I really believe in the product. But they just announced, like a week ago, I believe, they announced their new version that's coming out at the end of October. And I've seen it, and they've had some teasers. They have a blog where you can actually kind of see some of the production and what they've changed to it. I think it's On1 Labs. I'm not exactly sure of the actual URL, but I've been to they're here in Portland, so I've been out there and I've actually got to see and play with some of the new updates, and they're doing a beautiful redesign of the whole graphics interface, and it looks really, really good. So that's my pick. It's $99. I think if you're just buying it, and then it's like they have an upgrade price as well. So that's my pick. I think it's really good software, really good addition to like Lightroom.
And they've got videos.
So.
They've got videos that show the new UI,
I believe they do.
Okay, cool.
I think they do. Yeah. If you go there, let me see. I think if you search for On1 Labs.
While you're searching, so I got that email from them earlier, and I'm like looking through the email. I mean, it was like a week ago, like you said, that they were announcing On1 Photo 10, and I had two thoughts in my head. The first was, hey, there's Matt Klaskowski, my good friend.
Matt, now he is like the VP of photography for On1. So it's great because he's a friend of mine too. So he comes out to Portland a lot, and so I get to hang out with him. On1 Labs, there it is. We'll go ahead and put the link. It's just a category in their blog basically. So if you go to the On1 blog, you can see some of the sneak peeks of the new software. So
maybe you can help me with my second thought. So my second thought was when I saw it was, I've got the previous version of On1, and I don't feel like I've pushed it to the Nicolesy level with that version. I mean, I was looking at this, and I'm like, do I need 10 if I haven't even scratched the surface of the previous version? And so, Nicole, you tell me, do I need 10 if I'm still trying to like get into 9? It's like Photoshop comes out with CC 2030, and I'm still just making layers with Photoshop 3. What do you think?
Well, from what I've heard, and I haven't really got my hands on the actual product yet, but from what I've heard is they're improving the speed of it, which is always a good thing. Yeah. The function of it is pretty much there's not a lot. I don't think there's a lot of new stuff they've added to it. It's mostly a graphics change. So if you know how to use 9.5, or if you're learning how to use 9 or 9.5, you'll know how to use the next software. It's just going to be much more elegant and more streamlined. obviously I'll know a lot more once I get my hands on the beta and I can actually play
Yeah.
around with it and stuff. But you know, it's really not expensive software.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you know
For what you get.
it's
Yeah.
89. I looked up. It's $89 if you're upgrading. So and it's always, you know, I'm kind of the belief that it's always good to stay updated, because when things come out, when when your operating system gets updated, you want to make sure that everything still works. And they're not charging hundreds of dollars for this. You know, this is for like everybody can use the software. So
I love those before and afters though, because you look at those shots and you're like, okay, that's you like the shots on one side, like, okay, that's an okay shot. You know, that's
mhm.
not bad. It's very good. And then you look at the after. You run it through some of the software, and
Mhm.
it becomes like, okay, this is a gallery shot that needs to be put on the wall,
Yeah.
and it's essentially the same shot, but it's been processed through that. That's
But
amazing.
yeah, what I like about it is that it's not like a one-click wonder thing. You know, you're not.
Hmm.
I mean, sure, you can use presets and you can do one click and it'll add a whole bunch of like layers basically of effects. But it doesn't take very long to go from like a base photo on your own by customizing it yourself to actually go to a really nicely edited, processed, beautiful photos, because it's really, really, really customizable. You know, I don't know if you guys know me, if you listen to me, I don't like things doing things for me. I like to do them myself. I like to have control over it, and you can have as much or as little control as you want in this
I
software.
heard that from Brian. He mentioned that a while back. No, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
oh. My husband Brian used to work on one. So is that what you're is that what you're getting at there?
I'm just pulling your leg. I love it.
Uh,
Cool. All right, so we'll put that. That's coming out in October,
mhm,
and we'll put that link in the show notes for you. Perfect. All right, and my pick of the week is, so a couple weeks ago we did, or I guess it was about a month ago, I did an interview with Trey Radcliffe in San Francisco with the Peak Design folks for their Everyday Messenger bag that they announced the Kickstarter campaign for. So they did this thing. They kicked it off about a month ago, maybe a little bit more than a month ago, and they were looking for $100,000 to build this awesome bag, which people were raving over. Well, fast forward to yesterday. It's Monday, the 21st, as we record this. So the Kickstarter campaign ended yesterday, and they had a big party in San Francisco to celebrate it. And I have a feeling money was not an object at
yeah.
this party, because they ended up at almost $5 million, $4.8 million.
Ridiculous. I mean, I think it's great. I thought I saw this
Awesome,
bag.
but it's like,
Beautiful,
what?
but it's a bag. It's a camera. I'm not dissing it at all. I love Peak Design. I love Trey Radcliffe. It's a camera bag. It's just so crazy that it made
Yeah.
that much money.
Yeah, and
Power of marketing.
if I was Think Tank or Low Pro or any
Yeah.
of those guys, I'd be like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, what just happened? How did this happen? These guys, Peak Design is an awesome company, but they're a startup, and they're, in this cool space in San Francisco, and it's a hip, it's like your classic San Francisco Silicon Valley startup, and they just handed these other folks their lunch, to the tune of $4.8 million
This is
in
their
a month.
and this is their first, as far as I know, this is their first camera bag. Like
This is their first bag.
they've mostly just done like camera straps and like other types of connections.
Connectors,
Yeah. So I think it's great. I can't wait to get my hands on one.
Yeah, me too.
They're so pretty.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, that's probably what drove it, because we were like, I got to get one.
Yeah.
And they're not that expensive either. So it's, so yeah. So anyway, that was my pick of the week. So if you want to go check out the Kickstarter campaign, we'll put a link to it in the show notes, or just go to Kickstarter's website, Kickstarter.com, and search for the Everyday Messenger, or it's all over peakdesign.com. So you'll find it. You'll find it there. So a huge congratulations from the TWiP team to Peak Design and Trey and all those guys that pulled this thing off. Trey and team continue to just set records and do things that we didn't think were possible in the photography world. So hats off to those guys for continuing to innovate and inspire, me for one. All right, guys, we're almost done with the show. Before we leave and end this episode, Nicole, I'm going to let you go first. What do you have planned for the upcoming months?
Well, I have, there's a 500px, and I see that Lee is also going to say this as well. That's because he reminded me, actually, that I have a 500px photo walk coming up. We're recording this on Monday, and so on Saturday, the 26th, is the 500px Fujifilm photo walk, and they're all over, I believe, all over the world.
Cool.
So go ahead and look on, I think the 500px website should have the list of all of the cities that are actually being hosted. But I'm leading the one here in Portland, Oregon. So if anyone's interested, you're welcome to come. There's going to be prizes. There's going to be photo contests. It's going to be kind of cool. So that's that. and it's free. They're all free. I'm also attending. This is my first time attending a workshop, so I'm really excited. David Duchemin runs these workshops called Within the Frame, and he's doing a portfolio series where it's like very small. It's like literally 4 people can go to these workshops, and so me, my husband, and 2 other photographers, I don't know who they are going to be in Venice in November for a week. And David Duchemin's a really good friend of mine too, so he's probably one of the few photographers that I would pay to do a workshop with. It's when you're a photographer,
he's inspiring too.
Yes, you get very particular over because I'm a photographer, I'm an educator, so I have to be very selective. Like who is going to teach me something that I don't already know? And I know that this is something I'm really excited about it to just grow as a photographer. So I have that coming up, and then we're also taking about a week in Italy, just taking the train to a couple other cities and exploring.
While you're in the neighborhood,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So that's what I have coming up in a couple months. I'm really excited.
That's cool. That's cool. Again, I'm trying to remember. You remember? It was a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. David got hurt.
He did. He fell. I remember exactly. I think it's actually.
Yeah, it was.
I believe it's the place we're going to.
I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Or Pisa. Was it Pisa? I don't know.
Yeah,
it was Italy. It was definitely Italy. But yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, because he was walking backwards and he, took one step too far or something, right?
Yeah, he was like, I think he was, from what I heard, he was scouting a photo. He was standing kind of on a ledge, like over a canal kind of area, like 20 feet drop, 10 to 20 feet drop. He was scouting and just lost his footing and just straight down, broke both of his ankles and I believe his hip. I don't know the full extent.
He was airlifted out of there in a helicopter, the whole 9 yards, and I mean, to this day, he's still recovering from that. So
I believe so. I'll find out. I haven't seen him in several. It's been a long. I saw him. I actually met up with him right before then. I've actually seen him in person since then. So it'll be. Yeah, I'll get to see how he's doing. I'm sure I know he does all. He's really active. He still travels. He still does stuff. I know he's into underwater photography as well. So didn't stop him.
So where is the workshop located if people want to go sign up for one in the future?
If you go to withintheframeadventures.com. They have, and I think David leads some of them. He has some another photographer or two that also they kind of share responsibility in leading the workshops. But they have some really, really great locations that they take you to. This is my first one that I've done, so I'll give an update when I get back.
Yeah, we'll get a full report on TWiP when you come back. Well, cool. Sure. Well, congratulations. Sounds like you guys are gonna have a blast.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram and you might see some photos.
We follow you on Instagram. I live vicariously through you because you're like, and you're always doing something interesting. Like I remember what was it? One of the last trips you went on, you and Brian were doing these shots through the iPhone.
Oh, I do. So I did a lot of that when I was in Hawaii earlier this year. I think it was early in January. I take a picture with one of those Fuji Instax. I got the wide Fuji Instax. I have a small one too, and then I hold it up. And I kind of try and level the horizon in both of the photos, and then I take a picture of the basically like a Polaroid, I'm just holding the print.
A picture of a picture.
Yeah,
Inception.
picture. I called them Nicolesygrams. So that was my hashtag Nicolesygram.
Nice. So if people want to see those, they can just go search for that hashtag and cool. Awesome. All right, Lee Herbert, what do you have coming up in the coming months?
Well, as Nicole mentioned, we've got the 500 pix photo walk, so I'm one of the leaders for the Melbourne one. So again, it's free, and there'll be prizes and lots of fun, lots of photos. So come along if you're in Melbourne, Australia. Melbourne, Florida, I don't know if they're having one or not, but Melbourne, Australia, we're sorted. And other than that, the next couple of months, I'm running my stills to motion workshops in conjunction with a company here called Lab Space Australia, which are a Final Cut and Premiere and all video things training center. So we're running those workshops in the next couple of months, and I've put the link in the show notes so people can go up and sign up if they want to learn how to improve their video skills.
And that's called Stills to Motion, right? The workshop.
Yeah, Stills to Motion workshop.
It sounds like a recovery program or something. Is it for recovering photographers that need to move into video or like?
Yeah, why not? That's
yeah, that works. We'll go with that.
It's less diplomatic than I would put it, but yeah, okay, fine.
I tend to be less diplomatic. All right, guys. Well, thank you both for coming on the show. It's been a ton of fun. We talked about a lot of interesting stuff. And I know Nicole's going to run out and go get her drone after she hangs up.
I'm clicking buy on Amazon right now.
Or just go dust off the one Brian
doesn't I'll just
fly.
steal his. What the heck? Why would I buy my own?
Yeah, probably not even charged. I love it.
It's all right. I take care of that. That's easy.
All right, cool. Well, thank you both again for coming on. Always a pleasure. And that brings us to the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. I want to thank our sponsors for this episode, both FreshBooks and Lynda.com, for their support. Without them, there would be no show. And be sure to visit our website over at thisweekinphoto.com. And with that, it is time to take that lens cap. Nicole, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Off.